Welcome back to another exciting edition of Query and Schultz. Derek, glasses or no glasses here on ISC Sports Network. What do you think?
I think the glasses is a stronger brand with me, so I would prefer you not to wear glasses.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want you to be completely blind for the show.
No,
Are you blind without your glasses?
I'm not blind without my glasses, no.
Then yes,
Like,
I would prefer to have you take them off.
You're out there, right?
Yes, I'm right here.
Anyway, hey, welcome back to another edition. And the good news is this is an edition of Query and Schultz coming off of a Colts win. As always, we want to thank those who help bring it possible for us each and every week to talk sports with you. And our presenting sponsor is WGU, indiana.wgu.edu. We'll talk more about them over the course of the show. But remember, a chance for $10,000 in scholarships from WGU as they celebrate their 10-year anniversary, indiana.wgu.edu. Also, the Shop Indy, 920 Broad Avenue. You can also find them in Clay. What are you doing, in Clay Terrace?
Well, the Colts won.
Okay,
So we used to have a tradition on our old, very successful radio show that we would play Bang on the Drum all day. Todd Rundgren, however you say his name. So I figured every time the Colts win, we start a new tradition. ISC Sports Network.
A very timely and topical show for 2020.
That's right. It's about as timely as the Colts game day soundtrack at Lucas Oil Stadium. But yes, we're going to bang the anvil every time the Colts win.
Also, of course, over the course of the game, especially in that first quarter, might have made things a little bit easier if you were enjoying an Elmo Cola. And we are thrilled to have the straight bourbon whiskey from St. Elmo's Steakhouse as a sponsor on the program. And, of course, winners drink milk. And over the weekend, the Colts were doing exactly that. Derek, let's talk about this game first and foremost. Out of the chute, at the end of the first quarter, you're thinking, okay, it's a beautiful Sunday. There's plenty to do in Indianapolis. I don't need to watch this. Joe Burrow looks like the number one overall pick, and it looked like the Bengals were rolling. And then the water steadied a little bit, but that one was interesting.
Yeah, didn't you tweet out the hours for the zoo and for the Children's Museum just in case when they were down 21-0? Look, 21-0 in the NFL is usually a death sentence.
Right.
This isn't, college football, sometimes you see comebacks like that. This was the second largest comeback in Indianapolis Colts history. And to put it in perspective for everybody, now it happened over 3 quarters instead of 5 minutes, but it's tied with the epic Monday night comeback in Tampa. Because the Colts were down 21, 2003.
Correct.
They're down 21 points. They came all the way back and ended up winning that game in overtime. So, at 21-0.
Was it 03 or 04?
It was 03.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You're positive?
Yes.
Okay. I don't need to fact check you?
No.
Okay.
You never have to fact check me on this show, my man.
Okay.
You're going to have to get that through your head. But 21-0, generally means that you're in a lot of trouble, and the Colts were in a lot of trouble, and they just immediately kicked it into gear. And I think what really surprised me about yesterday, Jake, especially in the wake of the conversation that we had about Phillip Rivers the last 2 weeks, was I had gotten to the point where I had written off Rivers being able to climb out of a 21-0 hole and put the game on his shoulders and him to go out there and win it for you. And that's what he did yesterday. People can give him credit for that or not give him credit for that, be happy, mad, sad about it. The Colts get run out of the building if not for Phillip Rivers. I mean, if he is 100% to blame for their loss in Cleveland, he was the Superman hero of this game against Cincinnati.
I think this is what happens when you start to get, Derek, there are really 2 periods in a quarterback's career where things can go either way. And the first is when you are an elite level player. Like Joe Burrow, I think, shows I'm watching Joe Burrow and I'm thinking to myself, how did this guy get like 38 total snaps or throws in college? Ohio State did just fine without him being on the field. But Urban Meyer, as great a coach as he is, how did he not get Joe Burrow on the field? He throws such a precise ball in his timing. He looks like he is absolutely justifying being the number one player in the draft. But with young players like that, we saw it with Peyton Manning. We saw it with Andrew Luck. Some games they look out of this world, and then other games things speed up for them. They rush things, and you just kind of never know from one game to the next where that's going to fall. That's the early part of a guy's career. And then the late part of a guy's career, I think there are days where, and I know this sounds crazy, but I know this, and look, I'm not trying to compare being a 48-year-old lifetime fitness weekend warrior to being a quarterback in the NFL. But there are days, Derek, when I go and run or work out where I feel great. Other days, my body just doesn't respond. And I'm old, right? And I think with an older quarterback with the arm strength, the zip, the timing and the feel and the poise is always going to be there. But in terms of how your body responds, sometimes that timing or that zip just isn't there, and it's just one of those games where you just kind of write it off. With a veteran, aging quarterback in the twilight of his career, you revert back to those first 2 years. It's not a mental thing, but physical, where you just don't know from one game to the next what you're going to get. More often than not, obviously, when a guy is really good, you're getting a good quarterback. But there are going to be those days where it's just off. And that's what we saw a week ago with Phillip Rivers. That's not, that's the anomaly, hopefully, with an aging quarterback. But it's always going to be there. You're rolling the dice when you roll out a guy in the twilight of his career. But clearly, from the mental aspect of it, he knows what needs to be done. Yesterday, his body and his arm responded.
Yeah, I just think what happens is over 16 games, you have outlier performances. And I think what happened for Phillip Rivers is that you had a negative outlier last week against Cleveland and then a positive outlier this week against Cincinnati. Like, Phillip Rivers is not the quarterback that he was in Cleveland. He's also not going to throw for 371 and 3 tutties every week. You know what I mean? Like, that's 3 tud bombs and 371.
Tud bombs.
That's not going to happen every single week for somebody that's 38 years old.
I don't know that a tud bomb is like a 70-yard pass play.
Well, he had some big plays, and we are going to get into that with Marcus Johnson. And really, Jake, that's what impressed me. Like, I just didn't think that was there for him. And yes, his YPA and things like that were up, and they were around yards per attempt were around the league average. So the Colts had, even through 5 games, had a little more of a downfield passing attack than what they had the year prior, but he wasn't blowing you away. Yesterday, I thought some of the throws were absolutely fantastic, and I just didn't know that he still had that in his arsenal.
He put nice touch on the ball when he needed to, right? At times, he was putting the ball where only the receiver can get it. I mean, look, again, he's been around the league a long time, Derek, and so he knows what he needs to do, was able to do it. Now, you don't necessarily look at this as a detriment this weekend with the Colts' performance, because when you're playing behind the 8 ball like that, you're basically immediately – maybe this was the good news. Maybe the good news for the Colts schematically was they were put in a position where they had to force themselves to throw the ball and abandon the run. Because when you're down 21-0, you can't sit there and just get 4 yards here, 4 yards there. So the run game essentially non-existent. That is something that still needs to be addressed and needs to come through at the course of this season.
Yeah, and something else that we need to have a conversation about is you can take a quarter off against Cincinnati. You could take a half off against Cleveland. I know they lost that game, but they had every chance to win that game. If you take the first quarter off against Tennessee or the first half off against Baltimore, they're going to eviscerate you.
Right.
Like, they're going to stick you right into a trash can, pour gasoline on it, light a match, throw it in there, then they're going to take the ashes and they're going to flush them down the toilet. Like, that's what those teams are capable of doing.
What's a little bit troublesome to me is it sounds like you've thought that out before.
I've been watching a lot of, like, serial killer documentaries.
It appears.
On Netflix.
What serial killer, though?
I've been in kind of a dark
I don't know
place.
of serial killers that burnt anybody into ashes in a trash can. I mean, I'm kind of...
Yet.
Okay. So you're waiting for that one to come out? Is that
I'm
what you're
just
telling
saying,
me?
these teams, I don't mean to get too graphic, but these teams, the second half of the Colts schedule, Tennessee, Green Bay, Baltimore, all of these teams, Pittsburgh, are going to absolutely trash them if they mess around at all.
When you mention Green Bay, Derek, it brings up something that, and I'll tell you what, have you seen, speaking of documentaries, have you seen the documentary The Social Dilemma?
I have not watched that one yet, no.
It's fascinating because it talks about the mental psyche of the American culture and how social media has had an influence on that. And a big part of that is seen in the NFL with quarterback play. If you look at social media during the course of a game, in the first quarter yesterday, literally, or over the weekend, I should say, literally everyone, this is it. This team's terrible. I'm never watching the Colts again. I'm sick of this. I mean, and then, 3 quarters later, Super Bowl, here it is. This is unbelievable. This is the greatest thing ever. And the same is true with quarterback play. You would think if you looked at social media that Aaron Rodgers' arm fell off.
Yeah.
He's done. That's it. Put a fork in him. Put him light him on fire, flush away the ashes. Look, you still, when you look at the Colts schedule in Green Bay, you still have to be very aware of Aaron Rodgers. One game does not a quarterback make. And, Tom Brady yesterday or over the weekend, see, I keep saying it also, Derek, but the Bucs in the Green Bay game, this is exactly what Tom Brady look. He's ageless, and Tampa Bay they are absolutely embarrassing Green Bay. Look, it wasn't like Tom Brady went out and threw for 550 yards, and it wasn't like Aaron Rodgers threw 38 interceptions.
Yeah,
guys are going to have off days. You still look at Green Bay on the Colts schedule, and despite the fact they were embarrassed by the Buccaneers, it's a formidable opponent. And you have to take Aaron Rodgers seriously.
And it's really my fascination with this year is that already through 6 weeks, I think we have firmly defined elite teams. Like, I think at this point, I couldn't have been more wrong about Tennessee. And I know that they had to kind of scramble and come back and win that game against Houston yesterday, but Tennessee is the real deal.
Derek, over the weekend.
Yeah, sorry. Tennessee is the real deal. Pittsburgh looks fantastic. Seattle, even though they're pulling some of these games out by the skin of their teeth, they're finding a way to win consistently. I think Green Bay's in that mix. I think Kansas City's in that mix. What the Colts are in is this weird middle where you're like, are they good? Are they, New England, are they good? I don't really know if they're good. Are the Bears good? And the Bears are 5-1.
I know.
Like, do you think the Bears are good? Because I watched them a couple of times, and obviously I watched their game against the Colts, and I was like, I don't think this team's very good. I think they're okay.
We always have these teams, don't we? You always have the teams that in week 7 you think, wait a minute, are they good? And then there are teams that
the Rams, the Saints. I mean,
but then there are teams that you feel based on pedigree are good, and eventually you say maybe they're just not that good. For some reason, for me, every year I think of the Chargers. I'm telling you, the Chargers are going to be good. Chargers, and then you look at it, and they're
How
not
about
that
Cleveland?
Good.
I think Cleveland is good. They looked terrible this week, but I think Cleveland is a good team. But I don't really know. Like, I'm not willing to bet on Cleveland being a playoff team.
One thing that I thought about in watching the Colts and Bengals, this could be a huge advantage for the Chargers, the Bengals. Give me another the Dolphins, if Tua is now going to get in. In looking at it is such a fragile psyche for a young quarterback. I think there is no position in sports that is more challenging and presents more of a mental game than a young franchise quarterback in the National Football League. And you have like an 18-game window to either get firm footing or you are wrecked forever. Look no further than the classic examples. David Carr. Was David Carr a terrible quarterback in the NFL? I don't know, because he was so battered and beaten in Houston and never got his footing that you never got a chance to see who he truly was. Jeff George in Indianapolis, who has arguably the most pinpoint precise arm in the history of the NFL, and we saw elsewhere, Minnesota, prime example, that he had skill to be an elite level quarterback, but no footing in Indianapolis, and it just caved in quickly. What I want to know is it an advantage to the young careers of Tua, Joe Burrow, Herbert, and with the Chargers, that you're playing games with no road crowd? I mean, 7,000 people and piped in fake noise. But in terms of getting up to the line, looking over a defense, trying to communicate to your line and your receivers and make audibles, and they can't hear you, and the crowd's going crazy, and it's this fever pitch, that doesn't exist in 2020 in the National Football League. Is that an advantage for these young players that are coming in and saying, you know what, this really is kind of like training camp?
Probably, but how many times, honestly, outside of maybe the game in Chicago where there were no fans, that was noticeable? How many times have you really thought about it during the course of a game? Just watching at home, you.
No, I know, but
right?
Here's a really embarrassing point, and I noticed this with the National League Championship Series as well. I can't tell how much of the audio I'm hearing on television is the piped in
I hear you.
Or the crowd there.
I think that these guys, to be successful at doing this, playing quarterback in the NFL. You have to be so laser focused on the task at hand and what's going on.
But Derek, I think that laser focus becomes easier when you don't have 75,000 people drowning you out.
I don't disagree with your point. I just feel like that factor in it is a very small percentage of their success, their overall success,
it's like,
or their overall failure.
It's like this show. You know what I mean? Like the little dog and pony show that the two of us do, how much easier is it for us than it is, say, for Bob and Tom? Because they have massive numbers of listeners. We have like 9. You know what I mean?
I can only
speak for me. The stress is not there.
There's an insane amount of pressure for me. You remember that 07 Cavs team? Like, that's kind of how I feel. Like, I'm LeBron, and you have to put it all on your back. Like, if you're off, chances are Boobie Gibson isn't going to be able to win the game for
I would be Zadrunas Ilgauskas, would I not?
I don't know. You know, Z made a couple All-Star games, I think.
Derek.
Would you score 41 at the Hyper in, 1989?
I was once voted most popular radio personality in Indianapolis by a now-defunct magazine. I wonder if that's why they're defunct.
Nuvo?
No.
Who picked you as number one?
Indianapolis Women's Magazine. Still have the plaque.
A female magazine picked you as number one?
I mean, is that a surprise?
I don't know if I believe that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I score very well in that demographic.
Well, I was the 1991 St. Joseph High School Metro Area Summer Basketball Camp knockout and hotshot champion, so I'm not sweating it. I am also an award winner.
Okay.
We got plenty more to get to today on this edition, episode 7 of Query and Schultz here on IC Sports Network. More on the Colts and Bengals. Are the Colts good? We'll continue to have that conversation. They're heading into the bye week.
We're doing a milk toast today too, right?
Yes. So we'll do the milk toast. We'll do the Winners Drink Milk segment, sponsored by our friends at the American Dairy Association Indiana. Also, of course, Biter Bowl Bleep from our friends at the shop.
How about our friends
NFL
at St. Elmo's
thoughts.
Steakhouse?
It's
straight bourbon whiskey with dark cherry and bourbon.
We have so much stuff to talk about that I don't think we're going to be able to get to everything.
Very easy to make.
We also have to talk about Clemson, which I really don't want to do, and the World Series, which is set after last night's Game 7. A couple of Game 7s in the LCS.
I have a World Series fun fact for you.
Okay, well, we'll get to that later in the show as well.
Did a lot of
Schultz.
research.
Stay with us here on ISC Sports Network. Plenty to get to.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
The drive, the take, fouled, and it goes!
Lobbing it to the back of the end zone. They're going to say it's a touchdown.
Left foot gets through. Goal for Vargas. Hamilton will score!
Welcome back to Query and Schultz. You heard from WGU there during the break. And again, want to thank them for being the title sponsor. And a reminder to you that WGU is Indiana's affordable, accredited online university. You know, at WGU, they are well aware of the fact that when you really look at it, talent is universal, opportunity is not. And WGU, where ambition never sleeps, wants to make sure that everybody in the state is getting that opportunity to get that online degree. Indiana.wgu.edu is where you can go to take part in their opportunity for you to get a $10,000 scholarship now as they celebrate their 10-year anniversary. You can find out more at indiana.wgu.edu. And, of course, we know that Sage the Owl is their fabulous mascot. Hoping to get him back in studio soon.
How do
You have no
respond
comment?
to that? Yeah.
What do you mean?
What do you want me to say?
Ambition never sleeps. Hoo-hoo. That's what you say.
I do not want the owl to come back in studio. That was a one-time thing.
It was
it's
wonderful.
It's only because that's how much we love our sponsors on this show.
It was wonderful.
And I do not ever want to get touched again. That isn't actually in my contract, that there is no physical touching between invited studio guests or you touching me. There's no touching.
Derek, when I was a kid, I used to love when I would watch the NFL, and I believe it was Irv Cross, NFL on CBS, and at halftime, this was back before you had the red zone and all that, halftime they'd come on and they'd say, now let's get you caught up on what has been going on around the league.
Because you had no idea. Yeah.
Loved it.
You had no idea what was happening in like Buffalo or any of those other places.
And it was so much fun to sit there and watch the highlights from around the league. So having said that, let's take a look on what has been going on around the league. You had mentioned the Tennessee Titans. It is, to me, mind-blowing when you look at it retroactively that Derrick Henry was not like a top 5 pick in the draft because he had the size, he had all the credentials. Everywhere he has played, he's been a dominant player. And I know that it's a pass-happy league now in the NFL, and that's the way the trend goes. But what a formula they've come up with, because Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee is doing a nice job of just, playing within himself. And he's got talent, obviously. But Derrick Henry, man, when you've got that guy there, they're going to be in each and every game.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't want to make Tannehill into like the game manager type quarterback.
Yeah, that's probably selling him short.
You know what I mean? I think he has really played. I didn't think that it was sustainable what he did over. I don't remember how many starts it ended up being. I think it was 9 or 10 after they went past Mariota last year, which feels like forever ago, doesn't it? That Marcus Mariota was their starter. But 9 or 10 starts over last year, he played like a top 5 quarterback. And I thought, well, it's Ryan Tannehill, like he's okay, but he can't continue to play like that. First 5 games this year, and now you kind of extrapolated, it's almost a full season sample size. Tannehill has been a top 5 quarterback. I mean, the numbers don't lie, as much as it dismays me to say, because I had written it off as a fluke. He's been terrific so far this year. I mean, 4 tutties yesterday.
Touchdowns, yep.
That he ended up having. So, yes, you're right that Henry is the straw that stirs the drink, but that run game is not close to as good as it is without a quarterback and a passing offense that you have to respect.
Well, but it's a system of reciprocity, right? Because that passing attack is probably not what it is if you don't have a running back behind the quarterback. By the way, I put my glasses on because we're looking around the league, see, Derek. But when you have a running back back there behind that quarterback, the defense has to be honest. I mean, it's a really nice balance they've come up with.
Yeah, and they're just a good team, and Mike Vrabel has turned out to be, I think, a good head coach, which is also surprising because you look at the Bill Belichick coaching tree, and I thought that he had a lot of outdated philosophical things that he brought to the table.
Look no further than Detroit, right?
Well, yeah, and there have been, there's a whole graveyard littered with bones of old Patriots coaches that didn't make it as head coaches. I mean, remember the guy with the Jets, Eric Mangini? Remember, he was a genius until he wasn't, right? Or, I'm not even going to get into Josh McDaniels or some of these others that are part of that. But what was interesting about that game yesterday was that Houston really came out and played well, played to the level that I expected them to play for this year, even though they've really struggled with just one win.
When coaches get fired in the middle of the season, sometimes you get a rebound from that, and you get this energy where the locker room rallies around each other.
Yeah, dead cat bounce.
Not a dead cat bounce.
Yeah, there's a saying for that.
Nobody says
it's called dead cat bounce.
Nobody says that. But that was the week, I looked at it and I thought, you know what, I'll bet Houston comes out and plays well, and they did. But in typical Romeo Crennel fashion, he made a boneheaded decision late in the game that allowed Tennessee to get a win.
Dead cat bounce, a temporary recovery in share prices after a substantial fall caused by speculators buying in order to cover their positions. That's exactly what happened. Dead cat bounce.
I like cats. Mm-hmm. I'm more of a dog guy. I like animals. I don't necessarily like euphemisms that praise upon the mortality of an animal.
Why are you
in particular a bounce of one?
Why are you such a prude today?
I'm not a prude at all.
Like, you got mad about my garbage can fire ashes getting swept in.
That seemed a bit.
I don't want to offend your kitty cats.
Okay.
So I'm so sorry
You
to
know,
hurt
big
your
cat
feelings.
guy,
with
Mark
that.
Boyle, big cat guy.
But the Houston decided to
He
go
takes
for two.
He takes in like neighborhood cats.
Late, and they were trying to put the game away right there. Like he must not have felt like they could stop their offense, Romeo Crennel. And you go for two, you're up 7, which flies in the face of logic, at least old football logic, because you always, play it safe, kick the extra point, go up 8, make them come down tied and beat you. And of course, Tennessee ends up winning the game.
Well, in fairness, that's one of those calls that if it works,
yeah.
we're sitting here talking about what a genius move it was.
But I do think
But it
that,
didn't.
what you're seeing now, I mean, you just mentioned Irv Cross in the heyday of the NFL, right? The game has changed so much now where coaches are really thinking deeply about this and not just going towards the status quo of what they've always done. They're thinking, okay, let me lay out this game situation. Let me look at everything. Let me look at the data. And I'm not even talking about analytics and all that. But if Romer Cornell feels like we can't stop them, we have to go win the game right now, you're 2 yards away. So, which is the bigger risk? Us leaving it up to our defense, which is getting dunked on all day, or us trying to get 2 yards with our offense, which put up, 35, 36 points.
Now, for some reason, and I don't know who offended who, but in Indianapolis, we were subjected yesterday in the late game to Miami and the New York Jets. Now,
I think I have the answer to that.
what's that?
I believe, and I actually saw this, and then I followed up on it, and I couldn't find definitively if this is the case, but I saw on Twitter somebody mention that the Jets and Giants are contractually not allowed to be on in the same time slot.
Okay.
So the Giants-Redskins game was one of the Fox Regional National games at 1 o'clock, and they couldn't put the Jets and Dolphins there as well. So they put the Jets and Dolphins in the 425.
Well, that's
spot.
fine, but there were other 425 games. Why did we in Indianapolis get stuck with that? Because it's two teams that used to be in the Colts division?
It's all regional, so probably most of the country got Dolphins-Jets. What were the other games?
Oh, I honestly don't
I
know
don't even remember what
the late games
the
were.
other ones were. I'll look it up real quick just to see.
But there had to be better games than Dolphins, Jets. But here's what's interesting to me about the Dolphins.
Denver, New England, I guess, was the other one, which still I think would be a better game.
Yeah,
wouldn't you
I
think?
mean-
With the national – Broncos have fans everywhere.
They do.
Broncos have a national fan base in New England because they're New England.
And that was a surprise game, too.
Yeah.
You looked at that and thought, well, New England will absolutely roll in this game, and it just never got off the ground for them. But back to Miami and New York real quick. I do like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think I mentioned before he reminds me of Jeff Garcia, a guy that just seemingly year in and year out is a fill-in guy, and he plays well, and he puts up good numbers. I thought it was very cool also showing the maturity, the leadership of Ryan Fitzpatrick, that when Tua did come in the game late, it was Ryan Fitzpatrick that was on the sidelines really, trying to get everybody involved to celebrate the heralded rookie coming out off of a long injury and getting his first opportunity. But the New York Jets are terrible.
Oh,
Terrible.
they're bad.
Their uniforms look good.
And you shouldn't I think their uniforms are terrible.
Oh, no,
I love their helmets.
Well, that's what I mean. The
Yeah,
helmets.
I think the uniforms suck, but I love like the Altoon era New York Sack
the
Exchange
new shiny green that
era.
they're going with.
Yeah,
It's cool.
I like those.
Do you know why they're called the Jets, by the way?
Yeah, LaGuardia,
They were originally called,
the Titans.
that's correct,
Yeah.
yes. And then twofold in calling them the Jets. Not just because they were next to LaGuardia, but do you know the other reason that the ownership said they were going to call them the Jets?
Another airport in New York is JFK, so they just figured that was
No.
a good reason to
No.
have.
They were playing in Shea, which
teammate
is
the
near
Jets.
LaGuardia, and you hear the planes going overhead. But they said that Jets were sleek, advanced, and futuristic. And so they went with Jets. I don't know what was futuristic about Jets in whatever year they changed it, 68? Or 1960 maybe even, something like that.
Yeah, because '68 they won their only Super Bowl.
I mean, futuristic would be the
Right, or
Jetsons, right? The New York
67
Jetsons.
season. I don't remember.
69, yeah.
Yeah, well, Jetsons would have been. I don't know. You know what? Toronto Raptors and Anaheim Ducks has held up okay, right?
Has it?
Yeah, I think so.
Anaheim was the Mighty Ducks at first, right?
They were, and Tampa Bay was the Devil Rays at first, and then they
Yeah, they're just
went
the Rays
into
now,
being,
yeah.
they went, and we'll talk about the Rays here in just a little bit. But yeah, that Jets team, I saw they're among a small handful of teams. Here's a local reference that have started the year with 6 straight losses, all by 8+ points. I don't remember how many teams exactly. I should have looked this up beforehand. I think it's only 6 or 7 ever in the NFL. One of them, the '91 Colts. who started like 0-11, I think, and then
Yeah, they were bad.
and then won a game.
They were bad. I'm trying to think.
They were 1-15.
They were 1-15, right? And I'm trying to think of who they beat. I should know that.
Did they beat the Jets?
I think it was.
They
the
beat
Jets.
somebody in the division.
I think it was the
Let
Jets.
me look it up real quick.
But the Jets they can't move the ball. They not to sound like Jim Mora here, right? They can't do diddly poo. They're terrible. And
a complete lame duck head coach that everybody knows is gone, but they're just holding on to him because what's the point of winning any games now?
And then you look at, I think, undoubtedly, I watched the Clemson game against Georgia Tech, and Dan Orlovsky, the former Colts quarterback who was on color for that, literally talked for 4 quarters about how Trevor Lawrence is the greatest pro prospect he's ever seen. There's no doubt that he's going to be the number 1 pick, assuming he stays healthy. Do you want to go to the Jets, and is that a graveyard?
Oh, yeah. Well, you got to think they're really kind of starting square one. You know what I mean? Sometimes these quarterbacks get in a situation where you've got a coach that's trying to save his job or a GM that's trying to save his job. And I think the Jets are probably in a situation where they're just going to completely clean house. So everybody it'll be basically like starting an expansion franchise. And I think that can be, sure, it's going to be rocky, but I think that could be beneficial.
But man, I mean, they just have no playmakers.
No.
I mean, it's as bad a team as I've seen in the NFL in a long time.
Yeah, and there have been some really bad teams. I mean
their
Jake,
brightest light offensively is Frank Gore, who's like 50.
Think about how bad the 2017 Colts were. Like, that was a really bad team. Yes, Andrew Luck and the injury and Jacoby Brissett throwing them in the fire. That was a bad football team. They won 4 games.
Right.
They were 4-12. I mean, there's bad, and then there's yikes. And they're definitely in the yikes category. Like, they're historically terrible.
They're pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Who else jumped out at you in terms of this week in the NFL where either good or bad you were surprised?
I don't feel like anyone is talking about Pittsburgh at all.
Correct.
And they are just destroying everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, they killed – I think that Browns team is pretty good. I don't think they're great. I think the Browns are a playoff contender, like a 9-ish win team, and they destroyed them. which, to be fair, they've been doing for the last 20 years. But still, for them to come out and just completely eviscerate the Browns like that, I'm really, really impressed.
You like that word eviscerate. You've used that a lot lately. Did you discover that word recently?
They've got a lot of talent over there with that. Chase Claypool, we saw 3 tuds last week.
The question is going to be, as it always is with Pittsburgh, is can Roethlisberger stay healthy for the entire season?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a big part of that, and that division is rough because even Cincinnati, and I'm not just trying to overreact to yesterday, I don't think Cincinnati is as bad as the Giants.
I think Cincinnati's competent.
It's an average defense statistically. Offensively, they have some pieces, and I think Burrow clearly is one of those pieces. So I don't think that's a terrible team.
Offensively,
and the rest of the division's really good.
Cincinnati offensively, to me, is pretty impressive because of their diversity, because they have not 1 but 2 big, reliable receivers for Joe Burrow to throw to, one of those being T. Higgins, who's a rookie. So, I mean, you're going to have feast or famine there. A.J. Green, we know how good he is. But they've got a nice combo in the backfield as well. And Joe Mixon, while I think – I'm not a huge fan of him as a person, what we know about him in his past, but he's a talented guy, no doubt about it.
And Gio Bernard's mustache, have you seen that thing?
Okay.
I mean, that's all pro. I don't think Gio's all pro. He's more of like a kind of a complimentary running back. He's like the Dom Rhodes for them, but that mustache, that's not just all pro. That's Hall of Fame.
Really?
Yeah. Gio, the player, is Dom Rhodes. The mustache is Edge.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
So you judge a guy based on his mustache.
If you guys have not seen Gio Bernard's mustache, go look that baby up.
When you have a mustache like that at this point, is it mockery? Is it
mockery of other men? Because I felt less than
anybody that has a
mustache
like that, it's done flippantly, right? I mean, it's done completely sarcastically.
This is coming from somebody who can't grow one.
Yeah, okay.
Like, you're hating on it because you can't do it. I can. I have and I can. Grown a beautiful, flowing, long mustache.
It looked ridiculous.
God has blessed me with many gifts. But
do you remember when you
the
sent
number
me a
one
picture
gift
of
is
your mustache, and I texted you back, and then your brother-in-law wanted to fight me?
Well, my sister was – do you want to go down this road?
Sure, yeah.
So one of the first years that I grew the mustache was 2012 for the 500. And
now let me interject to say, in 2012, on the iPhone, that version way back when,
probably a 4,
somewhere
or a
in
3
there,
maybe,
or the iOS.
Yeah.
Okay, more specifically, when you would send, like today, if you group text 6 people and you send it, all 6 recipients, upon receiving that text, it is made aware to them that text has been sent to the other 5.
You could see that you're in a group text.
At that time in 2012, if you sent a group text, you didn't know that it was a group text until you replied to it, and then you saw, oh, wait a minute, the reply that I just sent went to like 5 different people. So you send me a picture of you with a mustache that
in the Coke lot,
horrific,
in a cutoff.
You looked like Uncle Rico.
It looked amazing.
It was terrible. So you sent this picture to me, and I have no idea. This is a group text. You didn't tell me that this was going to like your grandmother.
No,
and all
just
these people.
my sister in Connecticut. That was
and
it.
so I replied to it, to you, only to you, in my opinion, or in my thought process. And then I get a text back.
Let's talk about what the reply was. You told me to go do something to myself that is not physically possible.
Oh, it's physically possible. People have done it. And it's not what you're thinking.
It's not physically possible for me.
No, it is.
Well, I don't want to do that. It's profane, and
it's not profane at all.
It was.
It's not profane.
I think you're misremembering what you said.
It's a little dark. I'll write down right now what I said.
You told me to go do something to myself that I don't want to get into.
Not what
in this show. This is PG-13. This show.
This is what I said.
And long story short, actually, it's already a long story.
That's what I said to you.
No, well, yes. This is also awful. I mean, this is no better. This is actually worse. Because
it is, but it's not profane.
If I did to myself what you're suggesting here, I wouldn't be here anymore. So 2012 would have been the end date for me.
I'm just saying. That's what I said to you.
The other thing that you told me to do, at least I would still be alive.
That's what I said
afterwards.
To you to do.
It'd be very painful, and I wouldn't want to do that to myself. But anyway, my sister was on that text, and so she just got it out of the blue from a random number.
Right.
And my brother-in-law's like, well, who sent this? What is this?
Right.
And so he had to swell up a little bit on
He tried to fight me.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have gone well for him.
See, you keep saying that, but, my brother-in-law is not as much of a scrapper as I am. Like, you would never, and we're best friends, so we would never kind of come to blows like that. But if we ever did somehow get into a physical altercation, I mean, it's pretty clear who the victor would be. But I don't envision that ever happening, especially with this new show and some of the contractual stipulations that I put in.
Like,
I'm not sharing those publicly. That's between me and my lawyer, and Greg.
Are you fired up for the World Series?
I am. In fact, we're going to talk about that. We also have all of our awards to give away. Our winner of the week, ADAI. Also, our friends at the shop in
That's
Biter
the American Dairy Association of Indiana, by the way, because winners drink milk.
I guess I should do that, even though I'm more of an acronyms guy.
I'm well aware.
Yeah. So we'll talk WS when we come back here on QNS.
That's World
ISC
Series.
SN.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching. Barn needs cleaning. Tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
Oh my God! We are ripping fast today. How hard can it be, right? These are now selling for about $3,500. So we're back to our old ways of pulling rocks.
Act like idiots on camera, open cards, and talk about the hobby.
You can't get enough of them.
You can't get enough of us. Good one, J-Man.
This is the worst scandal. This
This is worse than steroid. Not so fast.
Are you going to watch the XFL?
I'll probably watch a little bit of it.
You want to go through and pick some games?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I really don't.
Welcome back. Query and Schultz, Episode 7, ISC Sports Network. I'm Derek Schultz. Jake Query here as well. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at St. Elmo. St. Elmo straight bourbon whiskey, in fact. And we both
St. Elmo been around since 1902, Derek.
We're holding it up here. Give it a try simply because you love bourbon or because it's your favorite drink at St. Elmo Steakhouse, or maybe you just need a drink because it's still 2020. You probably needed a drink when the Colts were in a 21 donut hole.
It is fabulous.
It's great. Straight bourbon with a natural dark cherry and bourbon vanilla beans, one of the fastest growing spirits in Indiana. Get a bottle today, as we've talked about. You can find it anywhere. Kroger's, Myers, Targets, Walmart's, any of those places.
Meyer.
I'm just sad that we can't say Marsh's anymore.
I know.
R.I.P. to Marsh.
But if you actually want to pay homage to Marsh or O'Malley's Food Market, my first job, you can get a T-shirt from there at the shop.
That's right.
920 Avenue or theshopindeed.com. You can see their T-shirts. Clay Terrace as well. Lined. Maybe I'll have to wear an O'Malley's one next. I could wear my little green bow tie with
It's kind of classic, yeah.
Ty Gehrig worked with me at O'Malley's.
They had a leprechaun as a mascot, didn't they?
The late, great Larry Shotwell worked with me. Jim Weghorst worked with me. Steve Beaver worked with me.
That's not the question I asked.
Will Higgins.
They had a leprechaun.
Dewey Williams. Dana Daniels. All O'Malley's
mascot,
alum.
right?
What's that?
Part of their mascot was a leprechaun, was it not?
Yeah, that's how we first met.
What do you? I don't understand the. I never worked at O'Malley's in 1977 or whenever you were there. So I don't know what that reference is to.
All right.
The World Series is set. Two crazy LCSs, and I actually felt I didn't have a dog in the fight last night. I felt terrible for whichever fan base had to lose that series because the Dodgers and Braves are weird, Jake, in the sense that I'm 37 years old. Sorry, I had to think about it for a second. In my adult life, for the most part, Atlanta and L.A. have been good franchises.
Right.
Very rarely are those teams terrible. Atlanta had a couple of years, a few years ago, where they were kind of rebuilding with this young core that you're seeing really explode now. Dodgers maybe had one or two, I think, in the mid-2000s where they struggled. But really, for the most part, these have been 85, 90, 95, 100-win teams year in and year out. But they've never really, when they get this far, they always find a way to fall short. The Dodgers haven't won the World Series since '88, and the Braves kind of made that into their label, where it was, hey, it's the Braves. They're going to roll out of bed and win the NL East every year and win the pennant, but then they're going to fall short. So I just felt terrible for Braves fans that they had to endure, and we're not even going to get into Atlanta sports, but it was very Atlanta sports to blow a 3-1 lead like that.
It was a great series. The National League Championship Series, and I'll be honest with you, I could never remember where they were playing. Were they in Dallas or San Diego? The AL was in San Diego, right?
The AL was at Petco.
The NL was in
and
Dallas,
the World
Fort
Series
Worth.
is going to be in Arlington, too.
Right. So the one thing I would say for Braves fans or just in general, and why I was rooting for Los Angeles, there were really two reasons I was rooting for Los Angeles. Number one, Clayton Kershaw is an amazing talent, and for all intent and purposes, everything I've read, a really good guy. He's a native of that area, Dallas-Fort Worth, actually. And his high school catcher was Matthew Stafford. He was Matthew Stafford's receiver when they played high school football together. But he's a remarkable talent, and, obviously the postseason has, in terms of getting that big defining moment, has eluded him. And I wanted him to get another chance at the World Series. Also, Atlanta is very young and just arriving, and the window's closing for the Dodgers. So with no dog in the fight, I looked at it and I thought, you know what, I'd rather see the team win it that's going after one last run here maybe with this core, as opposed to the Braves that aren't going anywhere anytime soon.
Honestly,
I did find it interesting, Derek.
If you have Mookie Betts, you know what I mean? You're right that it feels like the window with all of this personnel is closing here pretty soon, but Mookie Betts.
But not like Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta's young and just arriving.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I found this fascinating. This is the numerology that I enjoy that you're going to laugh at and roll your eyes. Who cares? Nobody cares. In the history of baseball, how long has baseball been around?
1887.
Okay. In the
that
history
right?
of baseball,
I took a guess.
There have only been, I believe, 19 Game 7s in a championship series, AL or NL. Obviously, if it's Game 7, that means that one team is winning 4-3. Never until this year did a Game 7 finish with a score of 4-3 in an NL or ALCS. It's happened 3 times in the World Series, 26, 45, I think, and 75. But it's never happened until this year in an AL or NLCS. A Game 7 by a score of 4-3 to end the series 4-3. Isn't that fun?
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, also a Game 7 has never ended with a 20% chance of rain. Like what we had. And a temperature at 58 degrees Fahrenheit.
How about this?
Who cares?
You ready for this? You ready? Now, do you have a towel around? Because you're going to need to clean up.
Yes, let me go ahead and grab my towel.
Grab your little medium coat there because you're going to need something to clean up once your mind's blown here. Think about this. The World Series is now going to be played in Dallas, and it features Tampa Bay taking on Los Angeles. Now, Tampa Bay and Los Angeles, of course, are the 2 cities that most recently have won championships in major sports, with the Tampa Bay Lightning winning the Stanley Cup and the Los Angeles Lakers winning in the NBA. Neither of them, of course, did so in their respective home cities, but Tampa, who won the Stanley Cup, won it in Edmonton, but they beat Dallas, and now the Tampa Bay Rays are going to be playing Los Angeles, whose team, the Lakers, won the NBA title in Orlando, and they're going to be playing where? In Dallas.
I didn't understand any of that.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
I didn't understand whether you're going to have to write it down for me.
There's
and
a quiz later.
Maybe I can comprehend it.
I think the Rays are going to win the World Series.
Yeah, I think these are the 2 best teams. And what actually I'm worried about, Jake, is that we expanded the playoffs. So we were expecting there to be some craziness.
Right.
And you had the 2-1s advance, the 2 clear best teams. The Rays were the best team all year in the AL. They had a little bit of a rocky start, but really after that, they were clearly the best team. The Dodgers, no question, were the best team in baseball all year long. And now you have the 2 best teams, which doesn't always happen. It's not like the NBA. You know, in the NBA, for the most part, 95% of the time you get the 2 best teams. Major League Baseball is not like that. So I hope that Manfred and other people that are pro expanding the MLB postseason, which I am firmly against, don't say to themselves, hey, we should go ahead and do this because it all comes out in the wash. Well, no, a lot of the times it doesn't. I mean, you almost had an Astros team. Didn't they have a losing record this year?
Yes.
You almost had an Astros team with a losing record. And how incredible would that have been, being in a 3-donut hole to come all the way? I was a little bit torn, Jake, because I really wanted to see the Rays win, but then and the Astros lose. But then I thought to myself, hey, well, the 04 Yankees won't be the only chokers. So maybe
the 04 Yankees won't be the only chokers.
Well, the 04 Yankees, the only team in baseball history to blow a 3-0 lead.
That's right.
And of course, the Rays would have been number 2. In fact, the Astros are the only other team besides the 04 Red Sox to even force a Game 7 down 0-3.
Well, but they had the wires.
Well, not this year,
as far as you know.
I don't think so.
Who knows, right?
I don't see any buzzers or anything like that. It'll be interesting to see the numbers.
I realize they're not cheating anymore.
Because at the very least, you get a national fan base, and you get LA with the Dodgers. And the Braves have a national fan base, but still, you know, Braves-Rays would have been a very regionalized. I feel like I don't want to be mean to baseball because I feel like all sports are like this.
The Braves are funny because you feel like the Atlanta Braves are an organization. I realize this isn't technically true, but theoretically speaking, it feels like the Braves, because of the Superstation TBS from years ago, have a national fan base, but not a local one. Whereas the Dodgers, you go, you know, anybody from LA is a Dodgers. I mean,
the iconic blue and white LA interlocked LA hat and all of that.
Have you been to Dodger Stadium?
No.
If you go to a game, there are certain franchises in sports, and I've been very fortunate to have been able to go to stadiums and venues for both college and professional amongst a number of different sports to cover and or to see games. And there are certain franchises where even if you don't like them, when you walk in, just the aura and the history of that franchise, a little part of you thinks, yeah, that's pretty cool, and I could see being a fan. The Dodgers are one of them. You go to Chavez Ravine, it's magnificent. The people are cool. It's beautiful. The weather's always perfect. It's pretty cool.
You met my buddy Stolman, right? He's been out
the guy
in L.A.
He's not the one that wanted to fight me.
No,
right?
that was Eric. Yeah.
That would not have been smart for him.
Stolman's one of my lifelong Connecticut buddies. He was the best man at my wedding, and he's been in L.A. he writes for TV. And he's been in L.A. for a long time, and he's always trying to get me to come out because he goes to Dodgers. He loves the Yankees like I do, but he always goes to Dodgers games.
Has he become a Dodgers fan, or does he just like
No, he just likes to go because the ballpark is beautiful and historic, and he just loves sports. So
it's pretty great.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
But what I was going to say was baseball, just like every sport, seemingly besides the NFL, has become so regionalized where if you're in a region that cares about, like I grew up in the Northeast, we always talked baseball. Me and my buddies here in Indianapolis. Right. Yeah, you've got Reds fans and Cubs fans, but for the most part, it's down the list. Certainly behind college sports and definitely behind the NFL and the NBA because we have a team here. So I'll be interested to see what the numbers are, even though I think you got to take the numbers TV ratings-wise with a huge grain of salt, not only because of the pandemic, but because we're still trying to adjust these metrics to fit 2020 viewing habits.
That's it. So much of, and I know we've gotten into this virtually every week, TV ratings anymore, I can tell you, sure, executives still look at it and advertisers still look at it, but so much now, comparatively speaking to even 3 years ago, of viewership is done in ways that the ratings don't see. I mean, if you are watching things on Hulu, on Sling, on Apple TV, YouTube television, etc., and that doesn't mean just on your laptop. I mean, televisions now, you have the app, selection, then boom, you have now taken yourself out of where you are being rated in ratings. So it's very hard to say, comparatively speaking, from years past. But this is a weird year all the way around.
Ready to get to some of our features?
Sure.
We'll come back with our American Dairy Association Indiana Winners Drink Milk winner of the week. Also, we still have the shop Biter Bowley segment to get to as well.
Biter Bowl Schultz.
No,
wildly unpopular, shockingly sponsored now by
and
the
we
shop.
have a promo code for that.
Okay.
Which we'll tell you about when we come back. It's Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
Brewer jams it home.
That ball wiggles in and into the back of the net.
A little fireworks in the first half. Throw it up for Tillman. Whoa, my goodness.
122-6-0 for Penn. What a swim. Six of them.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Welcome back, Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
I'm drinking milk now.
Sorry, I'm a little bit traumatized because I actually watched the WGU Indiana commercial and the slow-mo of the owl.
Ambition never rests, Derek.
Swooping down. Mm-hmm. It's a little graphic.
Okay.
We have children that watch this show.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully those children are drinking their milk.
Winners drink milk.
Does a body good.
Did you know that, Jake?
What am I doing? And what am I? I'm a winner, and I'm drinking milk.
It's time for our winner of the week, brought to you by our friends at American Dairy Association Indiana. Time for some milk facts. Low-fat chocolate milk is nature's recovery drink for athletes. How do I know that? Because it contains more carbohydrates than regular milk, and 1 8-ounce serving of low-fat chocolate milk has as much calcium as 10 cups of raw spinach, as much potassium as a banana, and as much vitamin A as 2 boiled eggs. And guess what? It's delicious. As you're seeing right now, Jake. You got to take that in moderation, though.
How can you drink chocolate milk in moderation?
I'm just saying. Got to take it in moderation.
No, it's wonderful.
How about your pick for this week? You want to start or you want me to start?
I will start.
I'm going to drink milk while you're doing
I thought the Colts, in getting their win after falling down early to Cincinnati, you knew they were going to have to go through the air. They were going to have to abandon the run. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Phillip Rivers was on his game, but any quarterback needs a target that becomes that. And we've talked about, who's going to be Phillip Rivers' kind of comfort zone. Mo Alley Cox, it was early on. He wasn't available. So what do they do? Marcus Johnson is a guy that didn't even start the year on the active roster. Goes out 5 catches for 108 yards. When his number was called, he was there, he was ready. And I know that, to use one of your favorite terms, Derek, receiver. For the Colts over the years, we've seen receiver be kind of a fungible position, one of your favorite words. But when your number's called, you got to be ready to go. Dontrell Inman a couple of years ago, they pick up off the street. He becomes a nice target.
Zach Pascal last year.
Zach Pascal continues to play well. But for Marcus Johnson to respond the way he did, I say he's a winner. Winner's drink.
All he does is make big plays.
That's all he does.
That's all he does. I believe he has 5 what you would categorize, and in the NFL categorizes as explosive plays, 20-plus yards. He already has 5 this year. And it's what this Colts passing offense desperately needs. Because say what you want about Rivers and the interception numbers and all of that, and if we're going to do this comparison with Brissett, the difference between a Rivers-led offense and a Brissett-led offense is that at least you have the ability to produce explosive plays in the passing game. You just couldn't do that with Jacoby Brissett. And Marcus Johnson is a reason for that.
Okay, and yours is?
My winner's drink milk winner of the week is Tua. Tagovailoa.
That's correct.
I always worry about trying
Tua Tagovailoa.
Tagovailoa.
I believe that's correct.
I'm not sure how many people saw this.
Tua, but
I only saw this from a tweet. Well, first off, he had what we thought at the time might be a career-ending injury last year, almost a year to the date. I think it was sometime in November, where the hip injury that he had, was that against Georgia or Auburn? It was a big game.
End of the year.
LSU, I think it was. I think it was in their loss to LSU that Tua had the injury. I might be wrong.
It was in November.
November 16th.
It was late in the year.
Might have been the 15th. Okay. Actually, now that I think about it, it might have been the 13th. But anyway, Tua had a serious injury. He had a serious injury which we thought would be either career-ending or certainly career-altering. And here he is, less than 12 months later, making his NFL debut yesterday in that blowout win over the Jets. He completed both of his passes. But the coolest thing of all, Jake, and it actually kind of reminded me of what I would do, and I think what you would do. After the game, he went back on the field in full uniform and sat down and FaceTimed his parents. And I just thought, stuff like that is why we love sports. Here's this guy. He's a big star. He was the face of Alabama for a couple of years there, a winner, a champion, rallying back from that injury. And the first thing that you think of is, you know what, I'm going to go sit on the field and FaceTime mom and dad.
Right.
It's just kind of a neat thing. I thought it was, it was kind of emotional seeing that tweet and seeing those photos. So good for Tua.
He did not win the Heisman, right?
I don't think so.
Do you know what quarterback from the state of Hawaii did win the Heisman?
Yeah, Baker Mayfield.
No.
I took a complete guess. I have no idea.
The previously mentioned Marcus Mariota.
Oh, that's right. I actually did know that. It's funny, Jake. When I was 15, I used to be able to really kind of go back year by year and name all the Heisman winners. And I struggled even to think, like, if you told me, hey, who won the 2015 Heisman? I'm like, Johnny Manziel. Like, I don't even know the right years.
Derek, you name any year of the 70s, 80s, into the early 90s. Name one off the top of your head. Just give me a year.
81.
1981 Heisman would have been Marcus Allen, right?
Yeah.
82 Herschel Walker.
Yeah. Well, that was an easy one.
83 Mike Rozier. Right? 84 Doug Flutie. 85 Bo Jackson. 86 Vinny Testaverde. 87 Tim Brown. 88 Barry Sanders. 89 Andre Ware. Then it starts to get hazy. 90 Ty Detmer. Is that right?
90 was Detmer, yeah.
91 Desmond Howard.
Mm-hmm.
92 Genie Toretta.
Mm-hmm.
93 Charlie Ward.
Yep.
94 Rashawn Salam.
Yeah.
95 Eddie George.
Mm-hmm.
96 Danny Werfel.
Mm-hmm.
97.
You got to know this one. If you're in Indianapolis, you have to know
Charles
this one.
Woodson.
Yeah.
Then it gets hazy.
Ricky Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Ron Dane.
Eric Crouch is in there somewhere. 2000.
Who was the old
Chris Wanke, actually.
Yes, I was going to say, who's the old FSU quarterback who won one of those?
Chris Wanke, yep.
Yeah.
And then I think Eric Crouch, right?
Eric Crouch won in 01.
Now, 70. Do you have it up in front of you? Heisman winners?
Yeah.
70 and 71, I get a little bit hazy. Give me the school for 70.
1970 Heisman winner. There's a big tree as their mascot.
So would it be Jim Plunkett?
Yes.
And then 71, was 71 Pat Sullivan, or was he in the 60s?
Yeah, who's actually come here to Indianapolis and runs a successful hardware store.
Great hardware
Couple
store.
of them.
That was 71, right?
Yeah.
72, John Capoletti?
No, you're
wait a minute.
1 year
72
off.
is Johnny Rogers,
Yeah.
sorry. 73, Capoletti?
Yep, and then
74,
Archie
5,
back to-
Archie Griffin?
yeah, back-to-back
76,
years.
Dorsett?
Mm-hmm.
77,
Your boy.
Earl Campbell?
Yep.
78 was, 78 gets hazy, Billy Sims?
Yeah.
79, Charles White?
Yep.
80, George Rogers?
Yep. Okay.
Back
we're
to
done.
81.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
good. We're good. Sorry.
I could do that with Indy 500 winners. Do you want to do
I
that?
should not have brought that up.
You know what Indy 500 winners do that Heisman Trophy winners don't?
What's that?
Drink milk.
Drink milk.
Winners drink milk. Okay.
Biter Bowlby comes your way next.
Biter Bull Schultz.
And we've got some parting thoughts, including, while we're on the topic of the Heisman, college football,
Okay.
which we'll get to as well. It's Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching. Barn needs cleaning. Tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Your life is on the go. Now your viewing habits can be on the go. With the ISC Sports Network app, your team is at your fingertips. You can download years' worth of content from the ISC Sports Network library. High school, college, special events, weekly and monthly shows, wherever you find your favorite app. And you can always find out more information at iscsportsnetwork.com.
ISC Sports Network, Buy It or Bull Schultz coming up, brought to you by the Shop Indy. The Shop Indy, as you can see, their T-shirts lined right here before us. And this one here that I'm wearing today,
I got
which
that
I know
one.
you also
Yeah.
have, the
It's a
Hoosier
great one.
Dome shirt. Just another example. My buddy Bob on Twitter asked me a great question, which was, when you think of the Hoosier Dome, what concert or events do you most easily think of? And that's a great question. You know, I remember when it first opened, the 84 Olympic basketball team, Bob Knight bringing his team there to take on the NBA All-Stars was huge. I think the one defining moment that is like captured, and I know for Colts fans it's going to be any of the Peyton Manning great runs, the Marlon Jackson pick. I think about Grant Hill's alley-oop dunk in the 91 Final Four, because having the Final Four at the Hoosier Dome at the time was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is happening. But anyway, this shirt right here for the Hoosier Dome, just one of many that the shop has to be able to pay homage to. Is it homage or homage? Dude?
Homage.
Homage. Paying
It's a soft
homage
H.
to the great pop culture and sports history of Indiana. The shop at 920 Broad Ripple Avenue, theshopindy.com online. And they're forcing me to use this ridiculous term that Derek has come up with, tutties. And I don't like using the word tutties, but I like if you use the word tutties, because you're going to get 20% off your purchase at theshopindy.com. If you can't get online, you can always find them, as I mentioned, on Broad Ripple Avenue or Carmel in Clay Terrace.
20% off Tutties.
Tutties, yeah.
Yeah, you type in homage and nothing happens.
You know, here's
so
the
you got to
thing.
make sure to get Tutties in there to get
That's
your 20% off.
That's actually a rival company. The problem is, Derek, you got to spell tutties because nobody knows what the word is. So they're like, what is the code?
TUDDIES. It's right there on your screen. Take a screenshot of it if you have to.
With my glasses on.
Or you could tweet me at Schultz975 and I'll tell you. I'm trying to get Brian and Alex to also accept Tud Bombs, because that's you know, terms evolve over time.
Okay.
Like originally it's, you know, I'm in the house, and then it became I'm in the heezy, and then I'm in the hizzle,
What about the crib?
and then I'm up in here.
What about the crib?
Not the crib, that's dated and stupid.
Okay.
Tuddies
Yeah,
is
but
evolving
Tud Bombs
into
really,
Tud Bombs.
Really taking the nation
Yeah.
by storm.
Real quick, Hoosier Dome memory, because I didn't grow up here. So the first time that I stepped into the Hoosier Dome, I was in college, and a buddy of mine who was from Lebanon His dad was a season ticket holder, and he said, "Do you want to go to a preseason game? We'll just drive up from Bloomington and go." And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I had never been to an indoor football game before, and it reminded me of being at a Peyton Manning convention. Like, that's the best way that I could describe it. Like, I was sitting up there in the RCA Dome, and I was like, it was so surreal to me. But, what I remember about the Dome, and it doesn't have the bells and whistles of Lucas Oil Stadium.
I loved it.
It just got – it's hard to explain to people that didn't experience it, the volume level. You felt it.
I loved it.
And I'm not just saying that like in a cliche way. Like, you felt it in your bones.
You know what's funny?
Like it reverberated around the whole place.
The upper deck of the Dome was aluminum benches, and it was perfectly sufficient. When you left the Dome and the wind as you walked, that was always the best.
Yeah.
So you could go through the revolving door, but like, no, I'm going through the push door because I want to feel that wind when you blow out. I saw concerts there. I saw Genesis there. They played for like an hour and 20 minutes in 1987, the Invisible Touch Tour. And then they stopped, and everybody thought it was intermission. And they came out, and they're like, "Sorry, kids, Phil Collins is sick." And that was it. That was the night that Ohio State beat Iowa in college basketball, we found out on the way home, which put Indiana into a first-place tie in the Big Ten. I remember that. There were a lot of great memories there. I mean, so many things that went on, and when I was a kid, Derek, I'm really old, we would go down, my parents would drive us down, and we would to see the development each Sunday of like how much more they had built on. And then we actually went down and watched it inflate. And it took like 7 hours. All of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, there's a roof. And you thought it just like a Jiffy Pop. No, it took like 6 hours, 7 hours.
Yeah, then went down to the old spaghetti factory, had a dinner.
There was stopped by Union Station, got myself a picture with a cardboard Ronald Reagan, and went home. The glory days of Indianapolis.
What is it, Ellis Ayers, and get a coat? And
that's right.
There it is. Bite or Bowl Bleep time, brought to you by our friends at the shop.
Bite or Bowl Schultz.
As we mentioned, if you're new to Bite or Bowl Bleep, here's what we do. I give a statement. Jake and I go back and forth whether we bite or we think it's Bowl Bleep. Statement 1, Jake. The Colts are one of the 5 best teams in the AFC. Bite or Bowl Bleep?
One of the 5 best. Let me get out a pen and write it down. I'm going to say that's Bowl Schultz off the top of my head, but now the question becomes, can I think of 5 better?
Chiefs.
Kansas City, Pittsburgh.
Ravens.
Baltimore.
Titans. Bills.
Cleveland. Titans, Bills. So, yes, not
See,
close.
I know that they beat them last week. I don't know if I would definitively put Cleveland ahead of them.
Fair, but even still, Kansas City
those
definitively.
I mentioned. Yeah.
Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Tennessee, Buffalo.
Yeah. And I would probably put – you know what? I haven't really watched – admittedly, I don't think I've watched the Raiders enough to have an opinion of the Raiders.
That's good. That's a good point.
But, again, there's kind of this middle of not only the AFC but just the NFL that it's hard to determine who the Bears, Browns, and Colts are. But, yeah, I'm going to say Bowl Bleep as well. And through 6 games, I feel confident that the Colts are good. I do. Not everybody is on board with that. There are some people that think this is a total fluke and that they're beating up on bad teams. I do think confidently that the Colts are good. But the question is, what's good? 9-7, you're pretty good. 10-6, you're
still good.
You're coming towards great. I never felt like this was a 12 or 13 win Super Bowl contending team, and I still don't think that.
9-11 wins would be a nice.
Even 11 would be with this second half of the schedule. I think is going to be tough for them. But I do think that this will be a team that fights for a playoff spot and has a winning record. Tom Brady will win a playoff game this year. Buy it or Bowl Bleep?
Well, you got to look at the NFC as well. Okay.
Well, I think the Bucs are in a good spot to make the playoffs.
They are. But in terms of where it slots, I mean, Green Bay is going to make the playoffs. Chicago at this point.
But if you win the South,
somebody in the East is going to make the playoffs.
If you win the South, you're guaranteed to have a home playoff game.
Yeah.
The problem is that one of the wild card teams. Well, actually, I shouldn't even see again, Jake. The NFC. The Rams and the Bears, are those teams really that good?
Well, one of the two of them, because of the fact a wild card, either Green Bay or Chicago, and either the West, man, San Francisco,
the Rams or Seattle. I guess you kind of have to put the Niners back in the discussion now that they got a big win.
But assuming they win their division, it would be a home game. Yeah, I'll say he'll win a playoff game.
They lost to the Bears. So if that was the 4-5 matchup and the Bears were the first wild card, be a rematch. I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I'm going to say no. In fact, I felt like going into the year.
So you're saying Bull Schultz?
Yeah, I felt like the Buccaneers were going to be kind of a flop this year, like an 8 or 9 win team with all the hype that they.
Well, by the way, I might have mentioned this last week. Did Rob Gronkowski lose a bunch of weight, like all that muscle mass he had?
Yeah, I think he did lose some of it. Yeah, but he caught it. He had a ton yesterday.
But he went from Mark Bavaro to Kobe Fleener.
Kobe Fleener, man, that's a name. Doesn't it feel like ancient history that Kobe Fleener was here? Last one here, Jake. Despite what diehards want, hello track form if you're watching, IndyCar is smart not to race into October. I know this year obviously is an exception with the COVID stuff bumping back St. Pete and some of these other scheduled races.
I would say yes, I agree with that, because what have we learned this year? One of the things I think we've learned is that date equity is really important. And, you know, the World Series, why will probably more people watch the World Series than watched the NBA Finals, excluding the reasons that I know a lot of people point to? A big part of it is because it's October. We think of the World Series in October. You don't think of the NBA Finals in September, October. And if the World Series, if the pandemic had been such that they were playing the World Series every game in Tropicana Field in December, would people watch it as much? I don't know, because it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And racing, I think most people think of as a spring and summer sport. And after Labor Day, the conscious mindset of the sports fans in America turns to football.
Are you remote for this one?
No, I'm going to St. Pete.
Okay. Which you like. That's one of the places that you like going
to. Who doesn't
to.
like St. Petersburg, Florida? I mean, look, I like anybody, Derek, you have to be conscientious from a health standpoint, and you have to be safe. But, yes, I will be in St. Pete for the finale.
It reminds me.
It's a great event, though. And under normal circumstances, it's one of the best on the schedule.
Yeah, I don't remember the last year that they did the old schedule where they were in Sonoma, I want to say, the middle of October.
Right.
But I remember Peyton Manning's first game back in Indianapolis as a member of the Broncos was in 2013, and it was the same Sunday as the IndyCar finale, and I thought, my God, you talk about a disaster.
Right.
Like, you couldn't find anything on the IndyCar race anywhere because nobody cared. It was just about Peyton and the return,
Right.
and I think that's
it's difficult
the trouble.
for anything to contend
Yeah,
with the
that's
NFL.
the trouble that you run into with IndyCar. So, yeah, I buy it that I think they're smart because I think they're wrapping up late September next year.
Correct. Now, coming up in November, a big game that I've had circled on, speaking of IndyCar, Matt Greco, who works timing and scoring for IndyCar, he and I talk a lot of college football at different racetracks. He is a Notre Dame guy and a big Notre Dame fan. And
an actual Notre Dame grad, which is
Correct.
very rare to find.
That's right. And we have discussed since the schedule came out like 3 years ago that it was going to happen, Clemson at Notre Dame. And as a Clemson fan, readily admit I'm a Clemson fan. That game worries me. You know,
Yeah, you got nothing to be worried about. If Notre Dame plays anything like they have the first 4 games, you got nothing to worry about in that game.
You don't think so?
No.
At all?
No.
It's at Notre Dame. Are they allowing fans?
Yeah, they've got like 10,000 or something like that. And I think it's mostly students and friends and family of the players and workers. So the Notre Dame, if you're on Notre Dame's staff, then you can get tickets. But look, winning is winning. And again, I hate that we have to do this every year. Like, I saw something today. Well, the Colts are 4-2, so don't complain, enjoy it. No, that's not how sports work. Like you critique everything. Sometimes there are good things that happen in a loss, and there are bad things that happen in a win. Notre Dame has been thoroughly unimpressive to me through the first 4 games. It's a very veteran team with a veteran quarterback in Ian Book. And they're playing poor competition. Like, Louisville is a bad football team.
They are bad.
Florida State, I know they beat Carolina. This is not a vintage or anything close to a vintage Florida State team. Duke stinks. And I think South Florida was their other opponent. So Notre Dame's opponents so far are like 2-16, I think, against FBS opponents. And they're squeaking by. That performance against Louisville, I thought you survived and hopefully you learned something about it. But, Notre Dame is going to need to play several worlds better football in order to even have a chance to compete.
Who are the
with
4
Clemson.
best teams in college football right now?
You have to say
Hard
Clemson.
to say.
You have to say Clemson and Bama, and I think you got to give Ohio State the benefit of the doubt until
Correct.
they prove that they're not. But that's the big question: who's 4th? Is it Notre Dame? Is it Oklahoma State?
The big question for the Big Ten, Derek,
I don't
to
know.
me, is going to be this:
Is it Georgia?
The Big Ten doesn't have. If you look at the ACC, the SEC. COVID has postponed, delayed, canceled games in every conference. The Big Ten has given themselves no wiggle room here.
Yeah.
They have no off week. So with Ohio State,
Pac-12 has 6 games.
Look, you're obviously not hoping for this, and you want everybody to be safe and to be thorough. But if part of being thorough means being cautious and delaying and or postponing games if you have cases, if Ohio State suddenly gets in a situation where they have to postpone a game, or if they're playing Iowa, who has suddenly a surge in cases, what do? I mean, then all of a sudden, does Ohio State only have 4 games on their schedule?
Yeah, or, you don't really have time with the Big Ten championship game and everything like that, I don't think, to make it up. So I don't know what you do. I think you're just going to have to evaluate teams based on whatever they can give you. And so if it's, we're basing Oregon on 6 games and we're basing Ohio State on 8 games and we're basing Georgia on 10, I mean, I don't know how you sift through that. I honestly don't. This is one year where I was actually in favor of expanding the playoff, even though most years I think there are only 2 deserving teams, or at most 3, and you don't even run into that problem.
You really think that Clemson will not be challenged by Notre Dame?
Well, I'm still hopeful that Notre Dame can challenge them. I do not think Clemson will be defeated this year. Ditto for Alabama. Alabama
Really?
just passed their biggest test, yeah. Auburn stinks. LSU stinks. Given their usual status, they're not close to as good as they used to be or have been in recent years. And all really Bama has to do is, I guess, beat Georgia again or beat the winner of Georgia-Florida to win the SEC.
Okay, lastly, is Trevor Lawrence the Heisman winner? Is he the best player in college football?
Yeah, I mean, he's right there. He's the best prospect in college football. I don't think anybody would dispute that.
I mean, did you see what?
I'll be honest, Jake, I don't even really – the Heisman thing, especially in October, like I don't even start thinking about that until the first week in November because of all the times that we've done – remember Leonard Fournette a couple of years ago? All the times that we've handed out the Heisman in like week 2.
I remember Fournette, it was like, give it right now.
It's over.
They've already engraved the trophy. Yeah.
Forget it.
I hear you.
We'll come back, wrap up the show next, and have some thank yous to give out as well.
Okay.
It's Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching, barn needs cleaning, tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Wrapping up here on Corey and Schultz, IC Sports Network, presented by WGU Indiana, indiana.wgu.edu. You can find their website, $10,000 in scholarships for their 10th anniversary. Ambition never rests, Jake.
That's right. I said ambition never
you'd
sleeps
been saying
earlier.
it incorrectly.
Well, I didn't get enough sleep. Mm-hmm. So I was a little bit restless, unlike WGU and Ambition.
Can we give some thank yous? Not only to WGU Indiana, St. Elmo, the Shop Indy, everybody that has helped partner with us.
American Dairy
here
Association.
On this show. Yeah, American Dairy. I chugged all my milk as well.
I want to say also, Derek, one thing, and every once in a while we've done this on this show, but do you ever see a news story that just kind of strikes a chord with you and you almost feel like a connection to it? Maybe not a connection, but I happened to see over the course of the last week a very sad story in Indianapolis that happened on the east side outside of a Long John Silver's, where a Long John Silver's employee by the name of Sarah Blackwood was murdered after her shift at Long John Silver's. And in reading more about Sarah, I don't know if Sarah was autistic. I know that the story I read said that she had connected with those with autism, but she had previously worked at Kroger and apparently was beloved within the community for her kindness to customers at both Kroger and then later at Long John Silver, despite being, a shy person and somebody who was involved in a relationship long term. They don't know how or why the circumstances were created that Sarah Blackwood, who is transgendered, I don't know if that was a factor in her murder. But the reality is, Derek, that this city right now is in crisis, and we are approaching a record number now of homicides. If we have not already surpassed that, we will in 2020. And we just simply have to do better. We simply have to do better. When you see someone like Sarah, who is kind, shy, vulnerable, maybe take a second to think about what life is like as someone else, as opposed to what it is about them that you don't like or strikes you the wrong way. We simply need to do better. And I just wanted to simply pass that along, because in reading Sarah's story, it was one of those that I thought to myself, you know what? Sounds like my life would have been a little bit better had my paths crossed with Sarah's at some point, and unfortunately ours did not. But if your path does cross with somebody a little bit different than you, try to have a little empathy as opposed to that spark firing inside you.
Yeah, good message for
Simply
this week.
do better.
For sure.
What do we have next week?
Next week, it's recapping the Colts bye. Yes.
Okay.
So you actually are going to have to prepare for the show next week.
That's okay.
We have one fall
first
show
for everything, right?
per week,
okay,
where you actually have to do some preparation, and it's going to be next week.
Pressure's on.
Pressure's on.
All right.
And it's going to be hard, Jake, because, of course, you have that full-time job that you have that it's taking up some of your schedule. Oh, wait, no.
Yeah.
You don't really have anything else going on, so
right.
There really is no excuse
That's
for you.
right.
Mm-hmm.
This is it.
I got to go to the box factory.
Okay.
Go punch the clock for Jeff Bezos.
Get some of those billions,
guys.
Derek.
We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us.
Billions.
Thanks to ISC Sports Network and all the crew here for making this show possible, and all of our great sponsors. We will see you next week on Query and Schultz.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching, barn needs cleaning, tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
You're watching Query and Schultz on the ISC Sports Network.
The drive, the take, fouled, and it goes!
Lobbing it to the back of the end zone. They're going to say it's a touchdown.
Left foot gets through. Goal for Vargas. Hamilton will score!
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching, barn needs cleaning, tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Your life is on the go. Now your viewing habits can be on the go. With the ISC Sports Network app, your team is at your fingertips. You can download years' worth of content from the ISC Sports Network library. High school, college, special events, weekly and monthly shows, wherever you find your favorite app. And you can always find out more information at iscsportsnetwork.com.
Ball is loose, picked up by Marion. Wide open down the sideline, caught by Pressler. Another touchdown for Marion University on defense. That freshman is hyped.